Okay, I I swear, yeah, I'm learning everything the hard way here. I must have talked for 20 minutes and realized I hadn't started recording yet. And that kind of bummed me out. So I've been hanging out doing other things today. I figure I'll give it another try. Um, I'm just going to pick up with the book here because I just checked my last one. I said, after several enjoyable days at Pennicamp, old and young bastards give me some shit at the gate on my way out about the cats. So I just ducked into the woods and jumped the fence. Tense hour or so. Hitch up to Miami and met Debbie and shared time and space and feelings. Saw some of Miami and had to keep on trucking. This another seemed like I run into these gals, but Debbie was a state farm secretary, and she come buzzing out as I walked by and said, "You know, I got two monkeys at home that ought to meet your two cats." And so I remember at one point where next day anyway, uh, President Nixon's on one side of Key Biscayne screwing the country, and I'm on the other side of Key Biscayne doing similar things. And uh, anyway, so I told her I had to keep going, and she said, "Well, do you have any money?" And I said, "I got $3." And she said, "Well, here's a 10." So I gave her the 3. So I still owe that gal $7. Anyway, so I'm headed north. And I decided I was going to head on up if I could and get up to see Maine, in a country I hadn't seen before. So I'll read a little here. Much walking in Georgia, then one giant ride to South Carolina, where I am at the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. Ultra fantastic scenery. Here at a Forester grounds, cleaning up and airing out and taking it easy, headed in. Lunch trip shortly. Have washed clothes, self dishes, eaten. How do people find time to work? My mind meanders down the creek of consciousness, and my soul is finally at peace with itself. So, let's see here. Sumter National Forest. Got to hop. Now, this is going through the Appalachian Mountains on foot, but got a hop by a guy that was a manager at Coconino State Park and invited free to spend the night and use the shower and whatnot. I remember I got up and I started following this trail, and I was just circling around, and shit, I got to where I should have been seeing my campground, and I'm looking at like a valley down there with a farmhouse on it and realized I was way the hell turned around. So I had to backtrack, but I got back to camp anyway. Also, this is where, as I'm doing this walking, my cats get heavy after a while, so I put them down and they'll follow me, and we're walking along, and shit, we come around the corner, and here come about 3 coon dogs from some farm way the hell out there. And these cats had met big dogs before, and they didn't run, thank goodness, or they'd been dead. But them dogs come to a screeching halt. There's something scary about a little black kitten, black, sticks that tongue out and puffs that fur up and lays them ears down. Anyway, I just stood there, and then I called them cats, and they stiff-legged, they walked over to me, and I picked them up and put them on my pack. But them dogs didn't attack them cats. I was pretty impressed. And then a little while later, we're walking along, and there were some horses way across the pasture, and they saw me, and I'm the only thing happening, so they come trotting across the pasture. My cats didn't see them till they were pretty close to the fence, and they were hoofing it. Of course, they pulled up quick at the fence, but my cats were blown away, and they come bailing off on my pack and running. And at the time, I had the rope tied between them. And I'll tell you what, they wrapped around a tree on the other side of the road, and I had to be careful walking over there because they were ready to go down fighting. They were scared to death, which I can imagine seeing something the size of a horse come roaring at you, but I calmed them down. Anyway, it was a fun time. I walked through about 3 states because they were all close together. But let's see what happened here. Okay, good exposure to South Carolina and Georgia, and then Randy and Gail very groovy soulmates, rescued me and the cats, and took us to down off the road a ways to some town. But they had a little farmette they were renting, and turned us on to home cooking and smoking vibes and farm life and a place to sleep. Next day, I bartered a shower for mopping up the laundry room and perched beside the road. Dave and Patty, tripping through the mountains from Florida, saw us, pulled over, far out. Guess the Smokies could wait. Why not the Blue Ridge Parkway to Pennsylvania? So I'm pretty loose on my plans anyway, but so I started riding this with this young couple in their VW bus, and we start going up the Blue Ridge Parkway. Also, two other travelers, hitchhikers, we get to this place called Graybeard Mountain Viewpoint. So we're on top of the Appalachians, and it was just a short hop to run clear to the top of that hill, look around, and while we were up there, some folks started pulling up and stopping, and so we go back down and met these people, and you realize, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I smoked pot, but everybody else did too back then. Anyway, so we're all passing one around and getting to know each other, and we decided, what the hell, we ought to just spend the night here. Who's going to stop this many people, It wasn't a campground, but so there was, let's see if I got it written down here. Eagle and Sandy, Alfonso, Mel, Perry, 11 or so of us, a little smoke, and why not supper? So I used to carry around this pot that was big enough to boil a pair of Levi's in. I don't know how many gallons, at least a gallon. So, and I was tired of carrying this big ass bag of rice around. So I said, what? Let's make some. I got enough to make a hell of a lot of rice here. So everybody started pitching in whatever they had, and we just made this slum gully, and we ate it. And that's when we decided, well, let's just spend the night here. What the hell? There's enough of us, It'd take a panty wagon to move us. So we all pitched camp. And the funny thing was, and I forget who it was. I think it might have been that Eagle and Sandy. They had a VW Bug that had on top of it, they had one of those, you pop it open and the tent pops up, little pup tent. And one side was the ladder and the other side was on the VW. So they all do is climb up the ladder and get in. But they had this Mandela or this picture or something that they'd somehow glued to the side of this canvas tent. So that was going to be their place. I had my black tarp and ripstop nylon. So I went over to this split rail fence and tied it in good, just slanting it down, and anchoring it off. And me and one of the hitchhikers, we were going to be in there. And then while we were still there, this Cadillac stops and this old tramp gets out. I got to tell you, this old tramp had a couple of cool things going. He had about 4 or 5 gunny sacks that had been sewn together. And what he'd do is rake up leaves or pine needles or whatever and fill that big old bag. And then he'd lay down on one half and roll the other side over him, and that was his sleeping bag. And then in the morning, just throw it all out. I thought that was kind of a neat idea. And he also had about 3 or 4 different size cans of fruit cans. So you can cook out of those. And that was his cookware. Anyway, he ended up inside the VW bus with the couple that picked us up. And then there was 4 boys from Boston, Massachusetts, had been down in Florida, and they were on their way back. So they had a 4-man pup tent kind of thing. And I got to tell you, because this is one of my best lightning stories, I got a couple. But so after we ate and set camp, we went back over and was talking at the edge there and watching this storm cloud come across. And of course, we're up at 6,000 feet or something like that, 5. And this storm cloud's about head high. So as it got close and it just started to rain, we all raced to our places. And the thing about I mean, you don't try and stay absolutely dry unless you got a camper or something, but you try and keep from getting wet. And that was my philosophy. So we're underneath this tarp, and yeah, the outside of us, it's whipping back and forth, up and down anyway. And yeah, there's a little moisture getting underneath, but we're not, it never did go through my sleeping bag. I slept dry and warm. But as I'm laying there, this is no lie, memory's pretty clear on that. Through my closed eyelids, through the black tarp, ripstop nylon tarp, through the top of the 4-man tent of the Boston boys, I saw a lightning bolt. I mean, that thing, I don't know how close it was to their tent, but it comes streaking out of a cloud that was head high and racing down and hit something in the valley on the other side of that fence. But I saw all that superimposed through my eyelids, through the tarp, through the tent. I saw that lightning bolt. Anyway, so we got through the night, and what happened was the 4-man tent couldn't take the weather, and it collapsed on those guys, and I think they spent the night in their van. And the guys with the pop tent on the Volkswagen, the rain hit so hard that it started bleeding the paint on that, whatever the hell they'd stuck to the wall, and they were all covered in blue and stuff. So the only ones that really made it was me and the tramp that was under my tarp and the guys in the Volkswagen bus. So that was a pretty cool trip. But next day, let's see what it says. Next day, shake of hands, understood mutual feelings, and onward, introduced to window pane. Everybody knows what that is, which I'm presently getting into this second night with Dave and Pat. That was the people with the van. So they pulled over and crashed just off the road, kind of down a little path, and so where we weren't visible, and crashed there for the night. Well, I stayed up, and I ended up walking down this path. It was a pretty moonlit night, and there was I come to this gate, and I crossed it and kept walking and come around this little bend in the hillside, and here is this old, I don't know how wide it was, to be honest with you. I'm going to guess 50, 100 foot wide between two slopes of canyon and 3 slopes, really. And it just kind of dropped off in the middle of nowhere as the valley continued to go way the hell down there. Excuse me. Anyway, it had been somebody's, they'd had a family there. This was an old house that had been burnt down, and I remember at one point I kicked a fire up on their cook stove that still sat there. The walls were gone and everything, but man, I dug around. I found a first aid kit and a first aid book. Anyway, and I got to realizing, some guy had raised a family right here. There was a little stream of clean looking water that went through it all, and it just kind of come down out of the hill, went for 25 yards and dropped off down the canyon, and that's where this guy had lived and raised a family, apparently. And my God, he must not have had, I'm guessing, 6 hours of daylight every day, because it come out of the east, and it had to be 10 o'clock before it made it over the top of that hill, and then it set across this other hill at about 3 in the afternoon or something. I don't know. Anyway, it was pretty trippy. I spent the night grooving on that stuff, and okay, another day or two and we go our separate ways. Wilson offers a ride. We've been moving right along. Shenandoah National Park, mountains. Saw the most beautiful view of my life there. The moon nearly full, rising out of the east, clouds and stars, and the sun setting purple and reds in the crotch of a distant mountain down to the west, and city lights far below. I wrote, don't really consider myself a part of the rat race anymore. Good feelings, but sort of out of place in it. Life stretches out a long ways if you live each day. Anyway, that was May 15th of 73. And one of the nifty stories about this Wilson character is we're rolling along, and there's a stranded car, and we stop, and the guy's out of gas. So Wilson and a couple of them head back to get some, while the cats and I and one of them stays. little smoke, and while we're waiting, rapping, he's a promoter for music groups. He's late, very uptight for time, seems strange in a way, but everybody gets back, and soon we're having a party with stuff they pulled out of their trunk. They had a musical whip-de-doos and balloons. It was fun. And we were both given some free passes to their next concert. And we're on the road again. If you can imagine, this is just like at this side of the road, on a road that ain't that well traveled anyway, but there's a bunch of characters just enjoying life. Anyway, so we get to Gettysburg. I'm not really that interested, but Wilson is. Then we go to D.C., and it's a heavy trip, the city. I mean, lots of buildings and stuff. So somewhere in there, it was Mother's Day, and I called Mom, wish her happy Mother's Day, and man, mothers are hard on you. You know what? Anyway, she says, Gary, you need to come see what Sandy's doing. She's in a play, and she's really good. I don't know. So I'm like, crap. But I said, all right, I'll give it a try. So now I'm headed west. So much for my trip to Maine. But let's see here. Got out in Gettysburg, walked some days or so right into Harrisburg. A watch I traded. A character from the roofing crew back there in Alabama. I traded a stereo I had for this nice watch, supposedly. Come to find out it was counterfeit, so I couldn't hawk it. So I wandered down to the river there in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and kicked up some soup. I had one tramp bum really show up and say, you mind sharing the soup? And I said, if you can find a spoon, and a bowl, sure. And another guy showed up, and he was an Eddie Bauer man. So we got to talking, and he invites me over to his house, and we ended up doing some trading. I leave with a lighter mattress. I got an Insulite pad I'd never had before, and he got my Eddie Bauer self-inflating mattress. I gave him my stove, and he gave me $10. So 5 pounds lighter and $10 richer. And he turned me on to the railroad. So John and a girl gave me a ride to the stockyards, and I spent the night, had breakfast, now waiting for a train headed north or west. This was the very first train I ever hopped. This was in May, 73 still, I think. So now I'm sitting under a tree, shade of a tree in Terre Haute, Indiana. I gotta tell you, this isn't in my book, but it was cold. So we're going out of Pennsylvania. We're going up over them mountains, and it's cold. And there was some cardboard and little bits of pallet and stuff in this metal Ford boxcar. So over in the corner, I kind of kicked up a little fire just to warm up. And the train pulls into this mining town. And stops. So I quick kick out the fire, And I'm thinking, I look out the window, and here comes the conductor out of one end, and here comes the engineer out of the other. And I'm thinking, oh, shit, first train. So I thought, what am I going to do? And I thought, well, let's just punt. So I stood in plain sight, and when the engineer come by, that's the guy in the caboose. He looks up at me, and I said, what's happening? He said, oh, we got a hot box. Kept right on going. And so I jumped out and asked him what a hot box was. He explained that's when a bearing gets hot on a railroad car, it starts smoking. And that's one of his jobs. That's the reason his window's stuck out there on that caboose, was to keep an eye out for hot boxes. And he's telling me all this, and we walk up to the engineer, pardon me, the conductor's the guy in the back. So the engineer says, well, did you find it? He says, nope. He said, well, we've got to find it. So they turn around, and they're going to look again. I honestly don't know. Maybe they're looking for the smoke that I have made. But anyway, I said, well, do I got time to run into town here and get something to eat? And the engineer says, buddy, you got maybe 5 minutes. I said, all right. So leaving all my gear and everything on this boxcar, I took off across the yard. It was a mining town. I mean, it's like this. So I'm running up hills, and I ran up, turned the corner, and ran back down, and ended up stopping. I never did see a grocery store or nothing. I stopped in a bar and got some chips and some Slim Jims or something, and I come running back down. And here they're already fired back up. The train's running, and the engineer's telling me to come on, come on. He was waiting for me. I thought that was cool as shit. So I jump in and we take off. Anyway, let's see here. So I end up getting to Terre Haute, Indiana. Freighter out of Harrisburg into Columbus. No roads, slow motion, wildlife, no cops, bumpy but really enjoyable. Columbus, where I took a side trip into the outskirts of town for supplies. Hopped one headed for the Indianapolis. Finally, a chance to clean up, laundry, where a beautiful woman who operates the place where you do laundry, the laundromat. Sorry. She brings me over this bag of donuts, and she says, "You like donuts?" And I said, "Sure." I got to back up a ways even before this. While I was waiting for the laundromat to open, I woke up and here is my little black kitten arguing with a big old alley cat down on the ground. We're still up in the boxcar, just got set off. So I get up, grab my cats, walk about a block off the tracks, and here is a Safeway and a laundromat and a Waffle House up on the other end. So I go up to the Waffle House and I order myself a waffle. And while I'm sitting there, this man, middle-aged businessman, sits down and we get talking. He says, "Well, let me start your day off. I'll pick up your tab." I'm thinking, man, I should have had eggs, bacon, and everything. But so he buys my meal, and everybody's kind of tripped out that my cats would sit right where they were supposed to by my pack. Anyway, so that gets done. I go to this laundromat, and I'll be honest with you, I was feeling pretty rich. I mean, I had $15 pair of wool socks and $100 sleeping bag. You know, I might have looked a little scruffy, but I was feeling pretty rich. And anyway, this gal that's running the laundromat comes over and has a bag of donuts, and she says I hit the wrong button, and she don't like donuts, so if I want them, fine. So I took them. Hell, a little while later, she come back with some hot cocoa, asked if I liked hot cocoa because she wanted coffee. And it never really occurred to me this gal might have been trying to pick up on me. But anyway, I went down to Safeway when it opened and bought some groceries. And one of the nice things about carrying your own is you don't run out of everything at once. So I needed some peanut butter, or honey, or whatever. So I got them and I walked down the street. Now I got to find a place to see if I can't get back on the train because I got dumped. And I'm sitting behind this little bitty store by a vacant lot by the railroad tracks. And this gal named Margot, clear across this big vacant lot, she starts hollering, sees me, and starts waving and hollering and telling me to come on. So I come over there, and she's a nurse. I think I got some more stuff written about her. Let's see here. It wasn't just her, it's her boyfriend too. But let me look. I'm going to stop right here. This is in Terre Haute, Indiana.